Good evening.
Good evening.
My story is so completely different, and I don't know if any of you went on the internet and saw my speech at the museum, at the Holocaust Museum, but it starts, my father came from Lodz, Poland, may he rest in peace, and his father was a very observant Jew, and with a long beard, and he hated being in Poland because the Polacks used to throw him off the sidewalk and said Jews walked in the gutter. And his father then passed away in an appendix operation, going back in the 1917, something like that. That's what happened, in the 20s. And my father says, I'm not staying here. So he hitched a ride underneath a train and went through Germany. And he got off in Luxembourg for some reason. And he went to look for a job, and he found out that in the mill they were looking for people, and that particular mill was owned by a Jewish family. So he went ahead and he worked there, and he met my mother, who lived in Luxembourg with two brothers and her mother. And they got married. He opened up a shoe store, and he ran, later on, a Yiddish theater, which was not his business, but it was, all the money came to Palestine at the time, to Israel. Then in 1938, President Roosevelt called the Evian Conference. The Evian Conference, they invited 30-some-odd countries to find out what to do with the refugees of Europe, because a lot of people were running away from Europe already. And none of the countries accepted any refugees. Ridiculous statements were made, that's all on the record. Australia said we had no room. Okay. Canada said the same thing. Different countries had different excuses for not accepting anybody. But one person accepted. He said it was the dictator of the Dominican Republic. Trujillo was his name. He was hated by the rest of the world because he was the worst dictator in existence at that time. If you know the Dominican Republic, it's the only island in the Caribbean that's divided into two countries, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And in the early 30s, a lot of Haitians came across the border to work in the Dominican Republic because they had better livelihood there than in Haiti. They were starving in Haiti. And finally, Trujillo, the president, decided that he doesn't want them there anymore, so he gave them 48 hours to pack up and leave. And he told them outright, if you're not gone, we'll kill you. And he killed close to 30,000 people. Wow. So when the Evian Conference came, Roosevelt said to him, here's your chance to come back into humanity. If you open the door here, maybe God will forgive you for what you have done. So he opened up the doors officially for 100,000 Jews. Immediately, an organization was formed, Joint Distribution Committee, to start recruiting people to be there. Now, what the Jewish organization wanted to do is build in the Dominican Republic a copy of what a kibbutz is like, a communal, a little town that everybody worked together for their headquarters, okay? And there was a lot of farmland, and each person that wanted a farm got a farm, but I'm jumping way ahead. But anyway, they went ahead and said, we'll take 100,000, and Roosevelt was very pleased with that. In the meantime, the American Jewish organizations were recruiting people that would fit this the plan for Sosua. The name is Sosua. If you go on your internet and look for Sosua, Dominican Republic, you'll see lots of things about it. A miracle just happened 2 weeks ago, where there was a big storm, and the Sosua beach all of a sudden became double the size. How that happened, I have no idea, but there's pictures all over it. So it's in the news a little bit. Anyway, the people that came to Luxembourg, the joint, decided who would be able to go. They were in France, in Germany, in Belgium, in Austria, and we were chosen, and my two uncles were chosen, but they wouldn't take my grandmother because she was too old. So my two uncles decided we don't leave her alone, and they're staying there. Adolf Eichmann said, if you're not out of Europe by October, that's 81, you're going the other direction, in other words, to Poland, okay, to the ghetto. And my father and my parents had a big discussion of what to do because they wouldn't leave him. But my two uncles said, we're Luxembourgers, nobody's going to touch us, nobody's going to do anything. So we're an independent, neutral country, so nobody would dare do anything. But in 41, early, the Nazis marched in. The interesting postscript, in a sense, is the fact that last year I met the Prime Minister of Luxembourg here in Jerusalem because the government officially in the parliament asked forgiveness to Israel for what they did against us. We did not know this, but we had some suspicion because the Luxembourgers were very, very much good to us and they hid us. And when the Nazis marched in, they put a big sign on my father's store, Juden nicht betreten, Jews do not patronize. And the neighbors were fighting how to take the sign down fast, okay? But the Prime Minister came here, and I just then realized, as a PS, that when they came in, the Nazis, they were given by the government every name and address of every Jew living in Luxembourg, so that they would find them and get rid of them. Anyway, the day came that we packed up in a few buses and went to Paris. We said goodbye to my grandmother and uncles, and we were waiting for the other people to arrive in Paris, and in Paris we all got on a train that had 6 wagons. It was not a passenger train, it was like the trains that you've seen in the Holocaust Museum. They were animal trains, all right? So they went ahead and we packed up there and we were supposed to go to Lisbon, Portugal. And there we were supposed to catch a boat to the United States and from there on. What happened is, I'm sorry, I forgot something. I'm going to go back. They came and we were informed a couple of times that they were coming for us, our family. And we went to little towns outside, hidden by other Luxembourgers. One particular case is interesting because we were in this little town, and not far from us, which was Belgium, was a camp of tanks, the Nazi tanks. And we arrived there early in the morning, and an hour or so after we arrived there, I disappeared. And they were looking for me all day long. Can you imagine? My parents completely went wild.
How old were you at this
I was
time?
6 years old.
6
Six
years
and a
old.
half. 6.5.
This is 1941?
41. Right. So they were looking for me. They just couldn't find me. At 6 o'clock in the evening, I arrived sitting on top of a tank. The captain of the tank took a liking to me, took me to the camp. I don't remember it, but my parents took me to where all of the tanks were, and loaded me down with fruits and candies, and brought me back to where my parents were staying. The officer, the guy in charge, came from a town of Heidelberg. The reason why I remember that is because he gave my mother a cigarette lighter that when you opened it, it played a song. Ich hab mein Herz in Heidelberg verloren. I lost my heart in San Francisco, but instead of San Francisco, in Heidelberg, okay? And he went away. One of the reasons I mention him, and it's important, is because I try to make a point, and another opportunity will come, where not all Germans were Nazis, and not all Germans were murderers. There were a number of Germans that didn't approve of what was going on, but they were afraid of their own lives, so they had to either play along or get chopped themselves, okay? Anyway, we go back to Paris now, and we get on the train. The first 3 trains are women and children with the parents, and a few pregnant women. And the last 3 wagons were all young people, men and women, who were in the upper teens and early 20s, that would work the farms and be very strong. The wind-up was that we got on the train and we were headed for Portugal. But all of a sudden we got stopped in a town called Villa Formoso on the border of Spain and France. And they locked us there. The train stopped, nobody knew where we were going. And 1 day passed, 2 days passed, 3 days passed, and we couldn't get out and we couldn't get in. And my father tells me, to be sure when he knew we left, being a shoemaker, he decided to convert all of his money into diamonds, being so close to Belgium and Holland where the diamond factories were, where he put them into the soles of the shoes. And that way, whenever needed, he knew how to open it up and take it out, that nobody would find it. But he paid 1 diamond for 2 bottles of dirty water so my brother and I could drink, because we had no food. And we were stuck there for 6 days, going on the 7th day. And nobody could get in or out. One of the women who was pregnant gave birth, a stillborn, and she died at the same time. After the 3rd day that we were there, and we had to wait 2.5 days to be able to take them both out and bury them. So this of course is all my parents talking, because I don't remember it as a little child. So we finally, in the middle of the night, the train all of a sudden starts moving again. So we moved, but we didn't know where. We thought we were going to Portugal, but my father saw through the window a sign saying Dax. Dax was a transition camp where people were sent from there to the Lodz ghetto. We were standing there and we didn't know what to do. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden the doors opened up and the captain from the camp, or the commander, stormed into the train and started yelling, "Everybody out, everybody out." And one guy said, "Please, be quiet, the children are sleeping." He got the butt of a gun, and thank God he was safe. But the commandant couldn't stand the stink in the room, because we had no bathroom or anything. Everything was thrown out of the windows, our toilet uses. So he went into the second car and saw the exact same thing, women and children. He went into the third car and saw the exact same thing, and then started yelling. He said, "This is not a kindergarten here, back." So I tell all of my friends that this was the sign that our Lord decided that I would sit here tonight and tell you the story, because we were saved from that camp. But now we're going back, and we come to a town called Bayonne. You must probably heard of it. And we were put into another camp. But this camp was run again by a German officer who was not a Nazi. Now we're in October. And very cold. He let the parents of all the children go buy clothes and food. He put in ovens where pot stove ovens, okay? I have some pictures if you want, I show them to you. That he let us being kept warm so that the organizers could see whether we can go back to wherever, but get out of Europe. We sent 2 spies to a port in Marseille, a boat in Marseille, France, and we thought that we'd be able to be saved that way, but they got caught and they got eliminated. So we waited a few more days, and finally the arrangements were made with the consulates and with everybody for us to get back on a train and go to Portugal. We were extremely thrilled that we would get out, but 2 days before that, he was informed, the commandant, that the SS officer from Berlin was coming to inspect the camp. And he knew at that moment that he would be immediately killed by the Nazis because he had no right to give us the conditions that we were living in. So they made a plan that the commandant would go to the train station, pick up the Nazi officer in the black limousine, and there's a river next to where the route is to the camp, and he and 2 other people were sitting in the car, and 2 of the German officers were in there. At a certain given point, they all rolled up the windows, closed them, locked the doors. People came from outside and turned the car over into the river, and bless you. And all of them died. He sacrificed his life to save us. So the next morning, that's why I say my story is so completely different. Bless you again. And maybe it's a sign to say that I'm telling the truth. Anyway, in Jewish we say you sneeze on the truth. You know. Anyway, we then the next day did get back on the trains and arrived in Portugal. I passed it to. I have one picture where we're standing at the port. We get on the port and we got on a boat, which you can all check on the internet, was called Muzinho. We got on a boat and arrived in New York Harbor. And at that time, it wasn't the time where a very friend of Israel was running the country, of the Jews was running the country. So we were put into Ellis Island. I'm sure that all of you that have ever been to New York have seen Ellis Island, or heard of it at least. And my father hated the United States because he said, I'm behind barbed wire looking at the Statue of Liberty. And we were there for 3 months. My brother had pneumonia and he was hospitalized there. And after 3 months, we got on another boat called the Algonquin, that's also on the internet, and arrived in the Dominican Republic. The people in the Dominican Republic were absolutely incredible. They received us you can't describe in what warmth and greatness they received us. We formed an organization called DORSA, Dominican Republic Settlement Association. And in New York today, you can still buy butter that was made in Silka, the camp of how do you call it? Factories that make cheeses and butters. Right now, there are no more Jews left over there. But the mayor of of that town of Sosua. Her name is Ilana Neumann, and she is the daughter of an Israeli that way after the war came there, and they became Christians, and she's a Christian, and she's the mayor of Sosua today. And she just 2 years ago built a park with a giant Magen David that you can sit on in the park. I mean, very giant, with the Israeli flag and the Dominican flag in the center. So the Dominican Republic received us in a manner, I keep writing to them, and as a matter of fact, today is an unusual day because the president of Israel received a new ambassador for the Dominican Republic, and in receiving him in his speech, he mentioned the fact that what they did, they voted for us in 1948, but also took in the refugees from Sosua. That's my Holocaust story in a sense. Now, one P.S. Not till after the war, in 1945, did we find out that 3 days after we left Luxembourg, they took my grandmother and uncles and killed them. Okay? In the Lodge ghetto. Okay? So that's how I escaped it. But I get a kick out of talking about it and saying that He is always there for everybody in need, if you just believe. I was never religious. My father was never religious. I have a lot of pictures upstairs I didn't want to bore you with, of how I had bar mitzvah in the Dominican Republic and our schooling. I was lucky to graduate the top in the country when I graduated public school, not high school. And the president at the time was still alive, and he offered my father to further my education whoever wanted, anywhere in the world. If I promised after I graduate what I wanted to do, I would work for the government for 20 years. And my father said, no, thank you, because he knew that eventually we would be leaving there. But we had an incredible life. The people from the Dominican Republic were outstanding. They were our brothers. They were not only our saviors, but our brothers. So that's that story. I have a million stories, but I think that's all you need to hear. You have it. Thank you. God bless you for coming to Israel. God bless you for letting me share this story with you. And it just should strengthen your belief and your belief in God, because no matter which way you believe in Him, under what name of religion, as long as it goes up there to Him and you mean it in your heart, things are going to happen for you. So just be blessed. Thank you for coming to Israel, and tell the story to the rest of the world.